Cabinet considered the note of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting on the policy guidelines for expansion of FM radio broadcasting services through private agencies. As you're aware, there was an empowered group of ministers which made its recommendations. The recommendations have been approved. There are some features of the request for proposal which were followed in the DOT auction of 3G and broadband wireless. There are some departures from those features. There will be a migration fee charged from the existing operators on their migration from phase 2 to phase 3. EGOM also approved the conduct of the auction of 839 channels in 294 cities to be awarded through ascending e-auction. The additional channels that may become available due to reduced channel spacing to 400 kHz could be considered subsequently after feasibility studies are completed. EGOM also decided that the authority to make any other minor changes would be delegated to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. I'll ask my colleague, Shri Manish Tewari, to supplement what I said on this subject, because I know that many of you are interested in this subject.
I think so. Once we go through with all the items, if there are any questions, we'll take them at that point.
Okay, as you wish. Okay. Ascending e-auction, yes. The next one is a very important decision that we have taken. This is about fixation of nutrient-based subsidy rates for phosphatic and potassic fertilizers. The total subsidy outgo for potassium and phosphatic and potassium fertilizers for the year 2013-14 will be lower by about 15% because of decline in prices. Actual outgo of subsidy, of course, will depend on the overall consumption. As you're aware, the Department of Fertilizer is implementing the NBS policy. Government of India announces NBS rates for various nutrients. The Government of India has approved per kilogram NBS rates of fertilizer nutrients for the financial year 2013-14 as follows. For nitrogen, rupees 20.875. For phosphate, rupees 18.679. For potash, rupees 18.333. And for sulfur, rupees 1.677. This will be lower than the rates approved for 2012-13. As a result, the subsidy on DAP will be 12,350 per metric ton, and on MOP, rupees 11,300 per metric ton. Further, we expect that MRP will now be lower by 1,500, isn't it?
Yes.
By 1,500 per metric ton for DAP and 1,000 per metric ton for MOP. Please get this clear. The MRP will be lower by 1,500 per metric ton for DAP and rupees 1,000 per metric ton for MOP. Department of Fertilizer will put in place a mechanism to ensure that the lower MRP is fixed by the fertilizer manufacturers, and the benefit of this reduction in international prices and the benefit of the reduction in MRP is actually passed on to the farmer. And if there is a violation or a contravention, there will be a monitoring mechanism which will take corrective steps to ensure that the benefit is passed on to the farmer. Mr. Jaina is here, and as we agreed earlier, he will take questions at the end of the media briefing on this subject. What is that? The next is the National Urban Health Mission. This is a sub-mission of the overarching National Health Mission. The estimated cost of National Urban Health Mission for 5 years is 22,507 crore, and the central government will share rupees 16,955 crore. Overall cost is 22,507 crore, and the central government share of that is rupees 16,955 crore. Center-state funding pattern will be 75-25, but for the northeastern states and other special category states of J&K, Himachal and Uttarakhand, the funding pattern will be 90-10. The scheme will focus on primary healthcare needs of the urban poor. The mission will be implemented in 779 cities and towns, each with a population of more than 50,000, and is expected to cover about 7.75 crore people. NUHM aims to improve the health status of the urban population, particularly the poor and the disadvantaged sections, by facilitating equitable access to quality health care through a revamped primary public health care system, targeted outreach services, and involvement of the community and urban local bodies. As you are aware, in April 2012, the Cabinet had already approved the continuation of the National Rural Health Mission. So now there are two arms of the National Health Mission. One is the Rural Health Mission, and one is the Urban Health Mission that was approved today. This is not to be done. This cannot be announced. 5 is skipped.
5 is skipped.
6 is also skipped. 6 is also
Yes,
skipped.
6 is also skipped.
7 is due. 7 is not due. 7 is not due. Yeah. The next item is the official amendments to the Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavengers and their Rehabilitation Bill 2012. This bill was introduced, and now official amendments will be introduced to the bill. The words insanitary latrine and manual scavenger have been defined, taking into account the real situation on the ground. It will also deal with how to ensure decomposition of human waste. Under Clause 11, Subclause 4 of the bill, there is a provision of survey of manual scavengers. It has now been provided that the eligibility criteria for identification of manual scavengers will be defined in the rules. There is a provision for constitution of a vigilance committee in each district and in each subdivision, and a state-level monitoring committee and a central-level monitoring committee with mandatory representation for women in these committees. The bill was introduced on the 15th of August. Bill was introduced on the 3rd of September 2012. It was referred to the Standing Committee on Social Justice and Empowerment. The Standing Committee's report to the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha were presented on 4th of March 2013. Based on the Standing Committee's report, some amendments are being made, and these will now be introduced in Parliament. The next item is the amendments to the Prevention of Corruption Act. There is a proposal to amend the Prevention of Corruption Act 1988 and the Delhi Special Police Establishment Act 1946. Now, the salient features of the amendments are: 1, clear definition of different forms of bribery in line with international practice, providing for liability of a commercial entity for failure to prevent bribery of a public servant, incorporating provisions for confiscation and forfeiture of property illegally acquired by corrupt public servants, protecting honest public servants from frivolous and vexatious prosecution by extending the requirement of sanction by the competent government to retired public servants in respect of acts allegedly committed by them while holding office, and laying down clear criteria and procedure and time limit for granting or refusing sanction of prosecution. So the criteria, the procedure, and the time limit for grant of sanction or refusal of sanction is also being laid down. The last item is the diesel locomotive factory, an electric locomotive factory. The electric locomotive factory is proposed to be located at Madhepura in Bihar, and the diesel locomotive factory in Marhaura in Bihar. Now, this has got a checkered history. There was an RFQ that was approved in 2008. There was an RFQ that was actually floated in 2010. Since then, 3 years have lapsed. Therefore, the Ministry of Railway thought it fit to take a comprehensive review of the RFQ and come back to the Cabinet for approving the RFQ. The new RFQ that the Ministry of Railway will draw up on the basis of principles presented to the Cabinet and approved by the Cabinet today will be notified in the week beginning 6th of May 2013. 2 months will be given for response to the RFQ. In parallel, the RFP documents will be got ready, and the RFP will be notified in the week beginning 6th of July 2013. This project has already been inordinately delayed. We are trying now to revive the project and get it going. So the RFQ will be notified in the week beginning 6th of May, and the RFP will be notified in the week beginning 6th of July. These are two major projects for the railway, and we are happy that we have been able to resurrect it and move it forward. That concludes the briefing as far as the Cabinet items are concerned. As you know, the CCEA and the CCPA were postponed for lack of time. Now I invite questions. Questions on the FM channel will be answered by my colleague, Mr. Tewari. Questions on fertilizer will be answered by my colleague, Mr. Jaina. And of course, any other question will be answered by all three of us. Thank you.
On this issue of order, the Cabinet Committee of Security.
It is correct that the Cabinet Committee on Security met and the Army Chief briefed us on the situation on the ground. If any briefing has to be done, it has to be done only by the Ministry of Defence.
Just एक minute. Let's go one by one. Yes.
Border area के लिए जो FM चैनल सेलेक्ट किए जाते हैं, उनकी मॉनिटरिंग का क्या प्रोसीजर है?
उनकी मॉनिटरिंग का भी वही प्रोसीजर होगा जो बाकी चैनल्स के लिए है, और प्रावधान ये है कि हर चैनल को 3 महीने की रिकॉर्डिंग रखनी पड़ती है और उसको नियंत्रित बेसल करती है, और जब भी कोई कहीं से शिकायत आती है तो वो जो रिकॉर्डिंग है उसको मंगवा कर देख लिया जाता है और उसके ऊपर जो उचित कार्रवाई करनी जरूरी होती है फिर उसको संज्ञान में लेके किया जाता है।